Welcome to the Permanent Change of Station podcast, a place where friends can come together, agree or disagree, and still be friends. Join hosts Lynette and Brenda each week as they discuss topics they've been covering since their days as Army brats living in Germany. No matter the issue, these friends believe it's time for a permanent change of station.
Hi there, this is Lynette once again with just another 5-minute mini episode of Permanent Change of Station. These little segments I'm calling Lynette's Legal Pad, and I'm going to touch upon, in 5 minutes or less, some topics that I think would be of interest to our listeners. This is not to be construed as me offering any kind of legal advice. I am licensed in 2 states. And I highly encourage that if after you hear what I have to say, if you fall into the situation or you think you need to get more information in this particular topic, that you find an attorney who is licensed in your state to be able to assist you in navigating these issues. One very common issue I have dealt with in my law practice when I was in private practice was that of dealing with military divorces. I lived in San Antonio for many years, which is military city, USA. I think I read a statistic that there are about 250,000 retirees just in San Antonio alone. Oftentimes, when people are going through divorces and there's military pensions at stake, there's a few little nuances that people need to know about. And oftentimes, people would come into my office with some misperceptions as to what things meant within a divorce to a military person. I think one of the biggest misconceptions surrounding military divorces is that people believe that they will automatically be entitled to half of their military spouse's entire pension following the divorce. Not so. Kids often ask, why do I have to take algebra? Well, it's for these kind of scenarios. You definitely need to know algebra when you're dealing with a military divorce. The amount of a pension that a spouse receives in a divorce depends on the amount of time the couple was married while the service member was serving. So, for example, if a military spouse had been in service for 20 years, but had only been married for 10 of those 20 years, then the non-military spouse would only be entitled to, at most, half of the pension that was earned during the 10-year marriage. And that is half of their half. So, although this is not guaranteed, and the amount of the military member's pension that a spouse may receive after divorce will depend on the couple's unique circumstances and how their specific assets are divided. Another common myth is what we call the 10-year rule, that many people getting divorced think that their spouse is not entitled to their pension if they were married less than 10 years. Wrong answer again. As I kind of touched upon previously, the amount of a service member's pension is the spouse is entitled to depends on the number of years that the service member served while the couple was married. However, there is no minimum threshold to the rule. And it's possible that a spouse may be entitled to a portion of a military member's pension, even if the marriage lasted as little as a year. The key distinction here is the 10-year marker. If a couple was married for at least 10 years, during which the member spouse performed at least 10 years creditable military service, then they would be able to receive their portion of payments from DFAS, which is the military pay center. If the marriage was less than 10 years, then the military spouse would have to make direct payments to the non-military spouse. There's another last little rule of thumb that I want to touch upon in about 30 seconds, and that is called the 20/20 rule. And that basically is that if you had been, if the marriage lasted at least 20 years, the military spouse has been serving for 20 years and there are at least 20 years of overlap, then the former spouse could be eligible for many military benefits, including medical care and full commissary benefits following divorce. However, even if the 20-20-20 rule has not been met, the former spouse might still be entitled to at least 1 year medical privileges after the divorce is final. This is a very complex issue. I just touched the surface. So again, if you are someone currently in the military considering divorce, definitely talk to a family law practitioner in the state where you are either a resident of, if you are overseas right now, or if you are stationed somewhere where you are currently living, and they can give you the straight story. Again, this is Lynette's Legal Pad signing off.
You've been listening to Permanent Change of Station. Tune in each week for the latest episode on Apple Podcasts or wherever you find your podcasts. And while you're there, be sure to rate, subscribe, and leave a review. Join us online at pcspodcast.live and on our social media platforms. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.